A very warm welcome to you all today. If you're joining live or if you are joining us on the recording, you are very welcome to chat number 5 in the series of our VAT chats. Just a brief introduction before we go into having a conversation with the wonderful Ed Saltmarsh. If you're joining us live, please do make sure you're muted. Any questions as we go, pop them in the chat box and we'll try and get round to them. In terms of what the VAT chat is, it's really for people, whether you're at the beginning of your career, wondering which tax is the best, which one you should choose. Maybe you're mid-career looking for something a bit different, or perhaps you already work in VAT, indirect taxes, and you're wondering what else there could be out there. So today, as I said, I am joined with the wonderful Ed Saltmarsh of ICAEW, here to talk about all things VAT and maybe wider indirect taxes as well. Hello, Ed. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome stuff. So, the question that I always start off with is to ask, what brought you to the world of VAT and what is it that keeps you here?
I think like most people, it was a bit of an accident. Um, so I did economics at university and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself after that. So was just applying for various graduate schemes. Thought I wanted to do something in government, so I applied for the civil service fast stream. Didn't get that. Thought maybe I wanted to do something in retail because my previous experience was in retail. Didn't get on any retail schemes. And then a couple of things happened that made me apply for a job at BDO. Um, Firstly, I had an accounting module in my economics degree, and I quite enjoyed it. And I thought, oh, maybe accounting could be a good career. And then secondly, I had just started seeing a girl in Southampton. We'd been dating for about a month, and it was going quite well. And I thought, oh, maybe I should look for a job in Southampton just in case this continues going well. Um, and so I went on the BDO website, and the only job they had open still was for a VAT advisor. Um, and I thought that sounds okay. Tried everything else. I'll try for that. And yeah, over 12 years later, I'm still working in VAT, and that girl is now my wife. So it all kind of worked out.
Oh, amazing. It's a happy story with the VAT over the top of it as well.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So you meant, I mean, when you started talking about retail schemes, I started to get a bit like this from a VAT perspective. So we'll park that for now.
Yeah.
But in terms of what keeps it, so you mentioned 12 years.
Mm.
What is it that's kept you within the world of VAT all that time?
Um, so to be completely honest, for the first chunk of that, I felt like it wasn't a conscious decision really. Obviously, I was on a training contract with BDO, just focused on passing my exams, and didn't want to leave before my contract was up in case I had to pay back money.
Yeah.
Um, and then suddenly you pass your exams and you're earning a decent amount of money. And I didn't know what else I wanted to do, so I thought I'd just carry on doing this for a bit longer. Um, and then, yeah, I realized I'm quite good at this. I work with lots of great people. And then just as I was starting to maybe getting a bit tired of working in practice, ICAW came along and offered me this job. And now I stay in VAT because I love it. I really enjoy my job. And VAT is the best tax, as we all know.
Uh, yeah, and just to let everyone know, no money has changed hands. That's I haven't paid you to say that.
No, I think enough people have heard me say that before that they'll know it's genuine.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And you did mention as well that ICAW came to you. So how did they describe your role? Because we can see your title there.
Yeah,
What's involved? What a typical day? What does it look like?
it can be anything. It's such a varied role, and that I think is why I enjoy it so much. When I describe it to people, I normally say it's kind of two parts. Um, there's the policy half, which is working with government, with Treasury, for example, responding to government consultations, um, and that kind of thing. And then there's the membership part. Obviously, ICAW is a membership body with 200,000 members roughly. And part of my role is looking after members when it comes to VAT. And that could be um, providing information through webinars or articles, or acting as a liaison between HMRC and members. Um, but splitting it into those two parts is kind of artificial because actually those two things really go together. I couldn't do either role without the other, and there's a whole host of stuff that's in between. So yeah, days are very different, and I think that's a great thing.
So, and you mentioned there's the kind of split sort of between the
Yeah,
two. Is there one bit that you like doing more than the other, or they both have their good bits?
they both have their good bits. I'd say the side that I'm more naturally drawn to is the policy side. I really love tax policy, which I know makes me a tax nerd. But I think with my background in economics, and always particularly enjoyed behavioral economics, and I'm very interested in politics, and my professional expertise is tax. So tax policy kind of neatly straddles all three of those areas. So I really am naturally drawn to that side of things. But actually, and when I think about working in practice, the best bit about working in practice was when clients were like really genuinely grateful that you'd solved a problem for them, something they'd been worrying about was keeping them up at night, and you took that problem away. And actually, I still have that kind of side to things in my current role with members because, if I can make a member's day easier, then that's actually really satisfying. So I do love both sides of it. Yeah.
Awesome. And just on the member side, and I appreciate that, some things will be secret squirrel and you can't give away information. So if that was the case, just tell me no, and we'll
Yeah.
move on. Um, but in terms of those members, if we look at that side first, how does it kind of work? Do they come to you with a query and then, what's that process like?
Um, so yeah, so any ICW member is welcome to contact me, and people do. I do get emails out of the blue, and that's always welcome, whether it's an issue or a comment or just general feedback or a complaint. I'm always happy to hear from members. But we do have some more formal structures in place. Um, so I manage the Institute's VAT committee, which is made up of 22 members, most of whom are in practice, and we meet quarterly to discuss hot topics and VAT, things that we need to um, work on with HMRC. Um, I also have a duties committee because the other side of my role is customs duties and that kind of thing. So we have a duties committee. And we also have communities, which tend to be sector specific. So we have manufacturing community, retail community, global trade community, and they tend to be a bit more members in business. So actually going to those is great because you hear from businesses what's actually happening, kind of, yeah, in the real world, and what's affecting them. So yeah, there's lots of feedback mechanisms, and yeah, it's great to hear all the different perspectives.
Awesome stuff. So you get all those different feeds in. And then how does that sort of link in, I suppose, with the policy side? Are there any particular, and again, secret stuff, yeah,
Mm. Yeah.
aside, are there what sort of policy things are you working on at the moment?
So recently, all sorts. I mean, in terms of formal consultations, it's mostly been non-VAT stuff recently, actually. So I've had the carbon border adjustment mechanism, the electric vehicle excise duty, the overnight visitor levy, and also low value imports, reform of the customs treatment of those. So yeah, a whole host of indirect tax stuff. Um, but as well as formal consultations, HMRC will sometimes come to us more informally through either their official kind of forums. So I sit on the Joint VAT Consultative Committee for ICAEW and the Joint Customs Consultative Committee, and they come to us for feedback on things that they're thinking about or working on or problems that they're having. Um, and that's really where the two sides of my job meet because I need to go to the members to find out what they think about things, um, what they're struggling with, what would improve life for them, and feed that back, and also amplify HMRC messages in the other direction. Yeah, so it's, it's kind of a liaison role. Obviously, HMRC contact our members directly themselves. They have lots of comms themselves, but sometimes I think we can help to clarify things, explain things, or just, yeah, as I said, amplify the message.
Oh, no, and I'm just listening to the number of committees as well, and just thinking, oh my goodness, there must be like lots and lots of sort of big meetings on a regular
Yes.
basis.
Yeah, yeah, quite a lot of meetings, and quite a lot of taking minutes, which is a side of the job that I'm less keen on. But
Yeah,
thankfully, Copilot now writes my minutes for me, and I just tweak them, which has saved quite a lot of hassle.
amazing. Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question, keeping it topical, like how much do you use AI to help with that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, AI can be really helpful. Obviously, as we've seen in recent court cases, it can be quite dangerous if you rely
Yeah.
on it without checking what it's telling you. But for things like writing minutes of meetings or just research that you can then go and look at what it finds for you, I think it's really useful.
Yeah, is that sort of, I guess, that first step then you can do the tweaking or the whatever you need to after that space.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like with all this stuff, approach with caution. That's
Yeah,
what it
I mean,
sounds
I
like.
think
Yeah.
I've heard someone say that you treat AI like you'd treat a junior in your team. Like most of what they give you is going to be right, but you still need to check it. Um, so yeah, I think it can be a really useful tool as long as you yeah, treat it sensibly.
Yeah, no, absolutely, completely agree with that sentiment. And something I just wanted to go back to a little bit, because obviously, title of this is the VAT chat, but really interested as well on the kind of custom side of things, because I know that, if VAT specialists are rare, then custom specialists are incredibly rare.
Yes. Yeah, that is
So,
definitely true.
so just, you know, it sounded like when you're at BDO, your focus was mainly on VAT. So how did that then read across when you're having to think about, customs as well?
So yeah, so definitely my focus was VAT at BDO. However, there was a major vote in 2016 that led to the UK leaving the European Union, and suddenly we needed to know about customs duty. And in 2016, there were even fewer customs specialists.
Yeah.
So the customs director at BDO would rely on VAT juniors to help him with work, and I
Yeah.
was one of the people that got involved in that kind of stuff. So I learned quite a lot about customs then. Um, I did. An additional qualification in customs import and export processes that BIFA ran, just to kind of get up to speed. Obviously, some custom stuff is covered in the CIOT exams anyway, but very theoretical. And I think the thing with
Mm.
customs is it's so much more about practical knowledge than just being able to read the legislation. And I think you do need to be a bit more hands-on with it. Um, so so when I joined ICAEW, the institute was doing very little on customs duty because most accountants hadn't really ever done much with it. Um, so I formed the customs committee, and I think the members, well, actually, some most of them aren't actually members, um, but the volunteers on that committee actually really appreciated having somewhere they could go to discuss with other customs specialists like issues that are affecting them. Um, So yeah, it's something that I kind of have enough knowledge that I can manage the committee and get involved here and there, but day-to-day stuff goes over my head because I just haven't been involved practically for such a long time. Or I mean, you could argue ever because I've never done it in business, only in
Yeah.
practice. Um, so yeah, it's a slightly different approach with that side of things.
It really resonates when you're talking about the practical side, because again, I've helped to support teach that cross-border paper for CTA. So in theory, I know where to find
Yeah.
stuff, but being in meetings with clients when it's like, okay, this has happened on our declarations, how do we fix it? Or why has this not followed the way that the legislation tells us? And you go, well, because the freight forwarder was in a hurry and they've just done this. So now
Yes.
you
Yeah.
need to do this. So I think that practical side, um, yeah, I would definitely have to defer to somebody on that, I think.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, I think that's true with kind of all tax stuff, isn't it? You know what the legislation says, but actually applying it in practice, it's never quite as straightforward as you think it's going to be. You need to know how, HMRC interpret various things, what's happened in case law. it's never really black and white. And yeah, so yeah, doing it day to day and knowing what is actually happening in the real world, I think is invaluable.
Absolutely. And I think that bit you mentioned about case law as well, it seems particularly relevant, I think, to VAT
Mm,
because of that, as you mentioned, in practice, things are a lot more not quite black and white. They're somewhere in the middle that you get more things going to tribunal and more tests than perhaps you would do from a direct tax perspective.
yeah.
So it's like keeping on top of your marshmallows and your,
Yes.
rotisserie chickens and EV parking and all this
Yeah.
other fun stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of segueing on from that, are there any particular memorable cases you've had? So either from your work in BDO or doing some of your policy work, or have you met any exciting people or had particularly exciting problems to solve?
Short answer, yes. So where do we start? So actually, funnily enough, when I was at BDO, we advised a client that sold giant marshmallows.
Oh,
And we said at the time, we think they're zero rated, and the client didn't want to take the case at the time because it wasn't worth it to them.
yeah,
But yeah, I think it turned out that we were right eventually. Um, but yeah, I think that's a really interesting part of the job is having interesting clients that are doing cool things. Um, so also you mentioned EV charging. I had an EV charging startup, I think it was back in 2017. Um, and at the time we said um, we think it should be reduced rated. And we couldn't convince HMRC, but they couldn't afford to take it to court.
yeah,
And obviously we've seen the Charge My Street case recently, which again seemed to suggest that we were right, although I suspect HMRC will challenge it.
yeah.
Um, and then other interesting clients. So I had the opportunity to advise two Premier League football clubs, which as a
Okay,
massive football fan was very cool.
yeah.
I even bumped into Virgil van Dijk, who's now Liverpool captain, on one of my visits to the Southampton Stadium. Um, and again, it's going to sound like I only enjoy advising startups, but that's not true. But there was a startup we had that we advised for years, and they were working on a drug to treat viral lung infections. Um, and they had so little money, they couldn't really afford to pay us. So the FD used to time our phone calls to the minute to make sure we didn't overcharge him. Um, and then suddenly COVID came along, and it turned out that their drug was one of the first effective treatments for COVID. And
Wow.
suddenly they had billions of pounds of investment and were shipping their drug all over the world. And that was really cool, being able to like it was interesting work. Um, and like kind of working with my colleagues at BDO from all over the world to get these drugs into various countries. Um, but also I think it was more satisfying that I was kind of helping, like just doing some good almost, like helping get this drug where it needed to be during the pandemic. So I liked that side of things. Um, at ICAEW, very different. I've met some very cool people, um, although arguably only because I'm interested in politics. Um, but I have met various secretaries to the Treasury, so including now Health Secretary, I think James Murray, met him a few times. Met David Gawke, who was a really interesting man. Had a half an hour chat with him about VAT.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so maybe you could get him on for one of these that
Yeah.
chats. He was great. He was yeah, so generous with his time, and obviously had such interesting thoughts about tax reform. But the uh, the big one that I was very excited about was quite recently I got to meet Gordon Brown,
Wow.
um, because we were we were working with kind of supporting the CBI because they had a campaign to remove VAT from donated goods. And
Yeah.
Gordon Brown was very much championing that because he has his multi-banks. So I went to a round table with Gordon Brown and met Gordon Brown, and I was very excited. And yeah, he was lovely. He came in and came to say hello to everyone and find out who they were. And yeah, it was really cool being in a meeting with a former prime minister, and he really had kind of that gravitas and just knew what he was doing. Obviously, you'd expect that, but it was very cool to be in the same room as him.
I said, do you ever get a little bit starstruck when it is someone someone
Yeah,
of that caliber? You're like, oh,
yeah, you do kind of think, how on earth have I ended up here, in a room like with Gordon Brown? But then, maybe he's thinking, how have I ended up in a room with Ed Saltmarsh? You don't know. Um, so yeah, no, it is. You kind of get used to it a bit. Once you've met a few senior politicians, you kind
Mm,
of realize, oh, actually, they're just normal people.
yeah.
Um, but you know, but yeah, meeting Gordon Brown was a level above, I think, some of the others. No offense
Yeah.
to James Murray or anyone else watching that isn't Gordon Brown.
If that gets fed back, it's okay. Full disclaimer, full disclaimer.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So if anyone sat there thinking VAT in the real world, do they really collide?
yeah,
Um, that sounds amazing. And I think going back as well to that point you made about the pharmaceutical company and their drug and having that through COVID, I think often still in the press sometimes, there's tax is looked at as like if you're a tax person. Certainly, I've had the comment, you work in tax, you must be trying to, do
mm,
something dodgy or, I mean, everything's tightened so much. I think it's a lot harder to do dodgy things in any case, but looking at it, as a good thing, as you've said, you're able to do the
yeah.
tax part to get that out there. So tax is a force for good.
I think that's right. I think yeah, a lot of people when I say I work in tax, they either assume I work for HMRC
Mm.
or, as you say, work on the tax avoidance stuff. And obviously, that's not. There's so much other things you can do in tax. And in my experience, 99.9% of clients I ever had just wanted to pay the right amount of tax. They just didn't want to get it wrong. Um, and yeah, so I think there is a bit of a misconception there.
I think I can certainly remember doing disclosures to HMRC for millions of pounds because of underpayments and that kind of thing. Just as you say, to get to that right position,
Yeah,
just applying the law and going, this is the point. So I think, have you found this that people in general, if you've got an FD, for example, they might be happier with things like direct tax, but when it comes to VAT, almost the shutters go up a little bit. I don't know if you've experienced that.
yeah, I think that probably is fair. And I kind of have that from the opposite perspective because I didn't do any accounting exams. I just went straight into the chartered tax advisor route at CIT, and I did the indirect tax route. So I only ever did really awareness of direct taxes and accounting, and I'm just purely a VAT person, and other indirect taxes a little bit. Um, so yeah, I kind of have the opposite perspective. I don't. It is strange though that VAT is such a massive tax. Like it raises so much money for the government. It is such a big part of a business's tax, and it does seem to be a little bit of a poorer sibling or cousin
Yeah.
um, to other taxes. It doesn't get the attention, but actually it can be such a big deal if you get it wrong.
No, absolutely. Because it being transactional, if you're doing the numbers
Yeah,
add up quite quickly, or can
yeah,
add up quite quickly, property transactions, things like that. And I think one more thing, just on the topic of indirect taxes as well, because I feel as though we keep getting more and more indirect taxes are being introduced, whether it's sugar levies or,
yeah.
all of the environmental taxes. Do you find that you're spending more time on that sort of side, that's maybe not overtaking the VAT and customs, but that's expanding your rollout as well?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I mentioned the electric vehicle excise duty earlier. I had a consultation last year on the soft drinks industry levy because that was expanded. And yeah, I think there are more and more taxes because governments for many, many years haven't taken the decision to broaden the VAT base. You could raise a lot more money from VAT and actually make it a lot simpler at the same time, and you wouldn't need so many other taxes. Appreciate it's a very difficult thing to do, but speaking with my tax reform hat on,
Yeah.
I think I think it's something that government needs to look at. How can we actually broaden the VAT base?
Absolutely. And when you see all these cases as well in food where we're getting into these
Yeah,
details, and you think could save some money on that side as well. Of
yeah.
taking these cases
Well,
using it. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think the marshmallow cases give everyone a good laugh, but actually that's cost the business tens of thousands of pounds to take that case. It's cost HMRC probably the same amount. And it's crazy. The most recent marshmallow case where they had to work out if A plus C was more than B plus
Yeah.
D. It's like, what is going on here? Um, yeah, it can't be right. Tax needs to be simplified. And I think people don't realize how beneficial tax reform could be to the UK economy. Um, so yeah, anyway, I'll get off my hobby horse on
Yeah.
tax reform for now and we'll carry on.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point to put it there, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just checking the chats. I haven't seen any messages come in. So anyone who is watching, if you do have any um, questions, we've still got a couple of minutes. But one thing I did want to ask you, Ed, is something I ask everyone who has the chat with me, is if you were to go back in your time machine, back to 12 years ago, to the start of everything in Southampton in BDO,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to yourself starting out, or indeed to anyone who might be thinking about embarking on a career in tax or VAT?
Um, Good question. I think probably the main thing I would say is I think it's important to realize that no one really knows what they're doing. I think when you start out in your career and you see these partners and you assume that they know everything and they don't get nervous before meetings and all this stuff, and that's not true. Um, I think most tax partners will admit they don't know everything there is to know about tax. And I remember the national head of VAT at BDO saying to me and the other junior in the team at the time that he still got nervous before important meetings. And we were like, oh, oh, so it's normal to get nervous. Because I think you think if you're nervous, you're not good at your job or you shouldn't be there or something. But actually, that's not the case at all. It's completely normal to get nervous before a meeting. It just shows that you care that you get it right. Um, and I think linked to that, my advice would be say yes to as many opportunities as you can. Being nervous isn't a good enough reason not to do something. Push yourself and move yourself out of your comfort zone, but don't be afraid to say no if you really need to. Because I think that's important. Don't say yes to everything if you're overwhelmed with work. You need to have some boundaries, but if you can say yes, do say yes.
That's great. And I love that point you mentioned there, that being nervous isn't, or being worried about it isn't a good enough reason. Because I guess if you were in that situation, what could you do to minimize that bit so you can get the benefit of taking on things?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are lots of ways that you can lessen the nerves, through preparation. Make sure you've got all the bases covered that you could foresee. But the best way, I think, to get over nerves is to do it. Do
Yeah,
something that you're nervous about, and then next time you do it, you won't be as nervous. Um, I've had that with public speaking. I used to hate it, and now I quite enjoy it. I think you just have to push yourself once, and then next time it'll be easier.
so I love that, and that I think is a great note to end on there. So thank you so much for joining me today, Ed. Thank you for everyone who's joined us live. If you've been watching this afterwards, thank you so much. And we'll hope to hope to see you for another Bat Chat very soon. Thank you very much again, Ed.
Thanks, Nikki. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, bye.
Thank you. Bye.